Greg, many of my science colleagues would say that the only way you can access truth, what's really true, not what you want to be true, is through the scientific method. You can't do it through science. You'll never know whether it's true. It may be something good to do, morality, but you'll never know truth. And as for metaphysics, the profession that you do, they would pretty much dismiss it. How do you react?
Well, the question of is science the only way to know truth has a long history. And what's interesting about the question is that there's a claim involved. So some people put forward this claim, science is the only way to know truth. And it's important to frame that claim and ask the question, is it true, and how do we know? Because there is no science that gives any evidence that that claim is true. It's a philosophical claim. So if the claim is true, it turns out to be false. And if we're only relying on science, then the question is, why should I believe that your claim is true? So there's an incoherence in holding forth the position.
Because the claim itself is a metaphysical claim. And you can
exactly.
say it's right or wrong, but you have to walk outside of that in order to make a judgment on that.
You have to walk outside the methods.
That's the movie.
That's
the trick you have here.
That's the trick about the particular claim. So then the question becomes deeper, and the question is reality limited to the kinds of things that science has access to?
Right, and we call that naturalism or
right.
materialism, and these terms have different meanings, but that's a general thing. That the only thing that's real is the material world, there's the
right.
natural world,
yeah.
And certainly without gods or spirits, but some people would even say without a lot of metaphysical objects, which are
That's exactly right.
manifestations of human construct.
Or even moral properties,
sure.
or aesthetic properties. And so there are various degrees and kinds of naturalism. There's one kind I call claim naturalism, where naturalism is a claim about what's real. And usually it goes something like this. Only the things that science can touch are real. But then there's a kind called method naturalism. Mm-hmm. And that's that science gives us the methods to discern what is real. Now, these are very closely related, and some thinkers don't realize that they're putting these together. But it's very important to see that these things themselves are either metaphysical claims about what's real or epistemological claims about access to truth.
About how you can access knowledge. What is knowledge and how you can know it?
What is the question, what is knowledge? And what makes our knowledge, our belief-forming faculties reliable is not a scientific question.
Well, if you have a methodology of science or a naturalistic methodology, it's really a system of rational thought,
yes.
Where you are dealing with certain logical principles, looking for evidence if there is any, if you're making judgment that goes beyond the evidence, at least knowing you're making those leaps, and being very rigorous in your self-understanding.
Right.
I think that's pretty good.
Well, it is pretty good. So another question that's lurking is science the best way to know the truth, even if it's not the only way? And I think the short answer is science is the best way to know the truth about the things science is uniquely poised to tell us about, which are empirical objects and how they work. And I use the word empirical broadly, even theoretical objects and things.
So what then is the value in this whole scheme of metaphysics?
I think the value of metaphysics is that, first of all, it raises deeply human questions about what it means to be a person, but also it undergirds the scientific enterprise. Why is there anything at all is a metaphysical question. What are laws of nature? Are they mere regularities? That's a philosophical question. That's not a question that physics or entomology is going to decide upon. Mm-hmm. It's a question that's philosophical. In fact, in the rise of modern science, Descartes began to write philosophy because he saw that the new science had to be grounded in metaphysics. And he was afraid it would all slip away and become in vain if there wasn't a secure metaphysical foundation. And I think he was right.
But the claim today is that yes, that may have been the foundation, and now that science has split apart from metaphysics, it's really left it in the rear view mirror where it belongs, because it was good for its time to establish science, and now science is the way to truth, and metaphysics is a relic of the late Middle Ages.
Well, I can understand someone being tempted to think this, but there are still important questions that only metaphysics can talk about, which is the human person free? What is the nature of human freedom? And how do we know that the human person is free? What are good reasons to believe that? That's not a question that the physicist is going to tell you. Even if the physicist thinks every event is determined, physics cannot tell us that every event is determined. It's a philosophical conclusion. And so what happens is, and I found this in conversation, that scientists often, and people who are fans of science, often don't know how to discern what is a metaphysical question and what's a scientific question. And that's why they think metaphysics is left in the dust. They don't recognize when they've moved from physics to metaphysics. The philosophers tend to recognize it because our turf is so small. We're very sensitive about people stepping on our turf. And we say, wait a minute, I think the philosophers need to speak up here.